You want to know how I know that the GOAT of all anime is back? Because only in the Monogatari series can you kickstart, and within 4 minutes into this 30 some odd minute episode, can you watch a person get rodeoed, swinged around, slammed into a wall, and tumble down the stairs because this sister is just trying to be like, I think you're alive. I don't think you're a real doll. When it got to the matches part, at first I thought she was pouring gasoline on her, and even though it was vegetable oil, still, the matches was an extreme. And, like with any Monogatari anime coming out, there's gonna be the questions, can I watch this? Is this brand new, beginner friendly? It's like, no, this is like episode 150 in a very long running series. At the end of the day, there's two orders. You can watch in release order, in the order that each anime series has been out, or you can watch in chronological. Just Google which one you want to do, it doesn't matter. I've always gone release and then chronological order in my rewatches. I've rewatched the series like 9 times at this point. Do whatever, man. I'm just happy to be back. I don't even know if I'll talk about this other than this video, because I don't think there's a demand, sadly, with the way the anime community is anymore. But I need to talk about this, because for me, despite me starting this series over like 11 years ago at this point, I have always considered it to be a top 5 to top 10 anime for me. It's never left that. It's adjusted from top 5 to top 10, depending on the year and how I'm feeling, but it's always remained that high up for me. And to be back with the Off and Monster season, which I'm pretty sure should be focused on all the other characters rather than our central boy Araragi. So I imagine, if you look at this episode, his only role was to pop in, being a creep to give her some ice cream, and then he dipped. And that's like the best thing I've seen. It's just so good. I absolutely loved it. But in general, it's so good to see Shaft not lose their touch, because I'm pretty sure a lot of the key staff that used to work on this no longer work at Shaft. Luckily, we still have Akiyuki Shimbo, who is still the director, so that does allow for the style to still remain there. But in general, man, it was such a fun return, and it felt like I've never left this series as per usual. Now, I do have full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full and good thought, we're going to be watching this one over on Patreon every single week. I don't know about YouTube here, so if you do want to keep seeing my thoughts on it, it's going to be over there no matter what. Because the thing about YouTube these days, and I talk about it, is that even the best of the best just don't get views anymore. Like, it's a very picky medium for what people want to consume videos on. If Monogatari was an isekai, I'd be getting views out the ass. That's just the unfortunate truth. But for me, I did want to talk about and at least give a first impression, because this was a fun story to kickstart the season off with, and immediately reminds you why this series sells so much, both with merchandise, streaming numbers, and the likes. There's nothing quite like it. This is Shaft's magnum opus of both visual creativity, but the storytelling's so good. The only novel I ever read in the Monogatari series was the Kizumonogatari light novel, the one that the movie adapts. And to really look at how they took a book that was so well written and then turn it into what they did there, it's just, I can only begin to imagine they've always done that with all the different series. And the story of the Phoenix, which is one of the sisters, of course, she doesn't know at this point in the story who she is. So the idea that, like, day after day, this is a doll who's basically observing and, putting off, like, reporting anything, just kind of going with the flow, examining, and just the idea that when she gets discovered, because ultimately she drops the match and she uses the ice cream in order so things don't burst into flames, we then go into the fight of the slug. So basically, we end up going and we touch base on a lot of these characters, many of which who have grown up quite a bit since this show first started. I did appreciate how at the very beginning they actually show you where this episode chronologically takes place in comparison. It's like, okay, this is before episode 3 of whatever anime they listed, right? It does actually help to kind of like make it understood, because this is a show that airs out of order, right? Like, not everything is just like, unlike a show where it's like, okay, arc by arc by arc, it's like things jump around a lot in this series, and I absolutely love that about it. But it is like why, like, I do enjoy the initial release order followed by a chronological watch, because like once you see like how wacky and just like it's done so purposely to kind of like mess with your perception of things, but once you've already seen it once, going back in chronological order has always been a very fun experience for me, and I have done most of my rewatches in that way. But it was nice because, we make the art of it, we then put it into the sandbox, and honestly, I wasn't sure what we were gonna do other than we had some pocket sand in the way of a pocket salt shaker, and it was fantastic. I mean, it makes sense. Slugs, right? You put salt on them, they dry up, and they go away. And Shaft just, the entire episode is flexing. At one point, we have Spider-Manning in this, like, I swear to God, like, has anyone played Death Stranding? Like, you know how you just see the handprints of things? Like, that's what she was doing when she was going to recruit the drawing. Fantastic. Everything I expect from this character in its entirety. But the idea that once we get there, you know, we don't want to use her, we didn't want to have her involved whatsoever, but this sister can't say no. So the idea that she has to continue playing it up, because ultimately what happens is we're trying to keep the secret at this point in the story that she is possessed by the Phoenix, right? Like, that's her cursed spirit, because all the girls have one, right? Of course, we had the snail, which is in the form of Mayoi, who obviously is, you know, is the reason we survive this entire ordeal in this way, because she folds up the paper. It's just so creative. It was just, I think the best way to put it is it did feel like returning to a friend. I think the last anime that came out was like 6 or 7 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, right? And to just casually return and feel like we've never missed a beat. Like, if you were to start from Bakemonogatari all the way up to here, it visually looks consistent. The only difference is I think it looks better over time. Like, the animation style and consistency, the art direction didn't dip whatsoever, and it just felt like it returned in the best way possible. This is one of my favorite shows to watch, and even when I haven't done a rewatch in recent memory, this is still the series I consistently think of. Like, this is a top 10 for me for a reason, because there's nothing quite like the wittiness, the snappiness of the dialogue. Like, this was actually, the thing about this is I'm sure there's going to be like a few people who checked out this first episode having no idea how deep in the episode count this really is. But I love the idea that this is actually a slower paced episode in terms of dialogue snappiness than a lot of the early stuff of this anime, where sometimes you'd have to pause if you really wanted to read everything on screen because that's how speedy it goes by. Just such a good episode. It visually was what I expected, and just, it was so funny and just like out of pocket in the exact ways you expect. I don't really know what all stories we'll get this season. It's both the Off and Monster season. I think the Off is a lot of side stories. Monster might be like a direct continuation on Arargi's story, if my understanding's correct. I could be mistaken, but either way, I imagine this will probably be like a 10 to 13 episode season. I don't think there's an episode count as of yet, and I'm excited for this one. It wasn't the most insane story to kickstart this off, but it felt like the perfect type of story to kickstart a Monogatari series off after not having it for so long in the, you know, for the past few years. I mean, Mayoi is one of my favorite characters out of the cast next to Senju Gohara, so I mean, it was a very pleasant surprise to see her pop up and kind of save the day after, you know, she obviously pushed the Phoenix out of the way because we can't let her know she is the Phoenix at this point. Very good stuff, and like I said, I don't know if I'll be talking about this one on YouTube other than this video. You can let me know if the demand's there. It's just I don't think the demand is there, but we'll see. Either way, I'm going to be watching it over on Patreon, and I'm going to continue to enjoy one of my favorite anime because it is just so freaking good. Let me know what you thought. I mean, like I say, there's very few anime that can kickstart by spinning a girl round and round and tossing her into a wall down the stairs, but leave it to the Monogatari series. Let me know your feelings on this episode down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Jacob McCarthy, Divine Tank 00, Zachary Pogiro, True Demon Lord, Chris, Carlos De La Cruz, and we also have a Galacron. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and y'all have a good one.